It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Planet Green Trees. Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Swing, essentially. Alrighty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. Listen to Planet Green Trees, episode number 557. Today's date's April the 7th, the year 2022. We're calling today's show Hash Bash, The Aftermath. I'm your host, Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLC. It's rumored that we're going to be joined later on by Jaime Madrigal of the Meant to Vent podcast. It's on last week. We got a great show planned for you. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please, any comments, questions, topics you want us to discuss, leave in the comments. The podcast is supposed to be running live on Facebook, YouTube, and every other platform that is available.
We'll do it live.
And we are doing it live. Got a lot of great topics to talk about. Let me tease those a minute, then we'll introduce the personnel that is going to help present those. Maybe I'll rant. I'm feeling it a little bit. I'm going to gather something up, maybe. One of the topics we're going to address is the Detroit City Council approves a revised recreational marijuana ordinance.
Well, that was quick.
And the missing article is the one that may have given them the impetus to take those steps forward, which is the distribution of funds from the previous year to cities that had opted in. Should get that one up there. Another topic we're going to discuss is marijuana prices plummet in Michigan.
Boom.
Customers are happy. Farmers are worried. Are the businesses happy? Question not posed there. Maybe we'll get into what has this done for the regulated market, and what has it done for the caregiver, quote-unquote, market, even though I don't like using the word caregiver there. We're also going to discuss all the beautiful cannabis users that we saw at the Hash Bash 2022 in Ann Arbor.
So not stoners like it says on the paper here, but cannabis users. It's very PC, I would say.
That's right. And it's a good time to mention, Cannajam 2022 has been scheduled for October the 8th. And we will continue in that vein of normalizing cannabis one event at a time. You're listening to Planet Green Trees, Michigan's #1 show about cannabis legal issues, licensing, regulations, compliance, medical marijuana topics, current events, and other legal matters. Let me introduce the personnel, as I mentioned before. Did Steve Miller escape? Has he made his exit?
I mean,
he's trying not to be on the show.
If he hasn't, he's about to.
Well, all right. We have the what do we call them? The Bunker Boys.
The Bunker Boys.
Tommy, Justin, and Dan surrounding us somewhere.
Dangerous Dan.
Dangerous Dan. We have, of course, Jim Powers here live in the studio. Jim Powers, of course, the founder of
look, it's Esteban. It's Jaime and Esteban.
All right. I was going to say, did Steve escape already? Did he get out? All right, so we're joined now by Jaime of the Meant to Vent podcast. Thanks for being here. He's the roving reporter at Hash Bash.
What's going on, everybody?
As mentioned, we are joined by Jim Powers as well, the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion. Jimmy Powers.
Good evening, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It is good to be here. Looking forward to the show.
And even though he indicated earlier he wanted nothing to do with the show broadcast tonight, we were able to capture, before he left, Steve Miller of Komorn Law. Genetic thing. It's a genetic thing. Please welcome my dear friend Steve Miller.
How's it going? What's up, Steve? I'm loving this weather.
We had a rough day at the office today. We're all kind of regrouping, kind of regathering ourselves. And of course, in the internet, the one who has been described as responsible for everything, but more importantly, something a lot of people may not realize, and it's important to mention, Jamie Lowell's really on his own took over the responsibilities of the hash bash and pulled it off without a hitch. I had the pleasant experience of interacting with him close up and noticed his unusual lack of coolness sometimes during the event, just because of the stress level that had overcome him, primarily because there was an hour and some minutes delay of before the show started because of a lack of power and whatnot. But it was a big deal, and it's a great event, and we're glad that Jaime Lowell was the one who self-appointed himself to do that. It may not have happened if it wasn't for him. Please welcome our dear friend, Jaime Lowell.
Hey, so real quick, I went to Nature's Relief in Ferndale tonight to get some cannabis for tonight's show, and came across old friend of the show and community member Christine Beebe. Said to say hi to everybody.
Awesome. Christine?
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say she's been on the show a lot of times. Remember from not too long ago, some of those episodes in the basement. But yes, Christine.
Back in the basement.
Yeah, she's been bud tending at a few different places, but has been at this place now for a while, and I think doing pretty well there. So I kind of like it. I like their approach there.
What is it, their approach?
So it's whatever works for people, I'm fine with. I'm not trying to tell somebody how they need to go about this, but I don't like it when I go into a place and they start asking me if I want sativa or indica, or make a big deal about their higher THC strains and stuff like that. That's a total turnoff to me, and kind of an exposure of ignorance or willingness to totally feed into the ad populum market and not necessarily give an opportunity for education, for offering up useful information about the cannabis. So the bud tender, the first bud tender I had there, this person Rachel, totally took the approach of finding out where I was at with stuff and what I was looking for, and then dealt with me like that. And I appreciated that.
You're saying as opposed to someone that tells you oh, this is the good stuff because it's got this.
This is the fire.
Yeah.
You should try this, right? We've talked about that a lot. We've discussed how the market promotion is focused on THC. I don't know if this is a good analogy, but it's kind of like you're working out, like bench pressing, only doing bench pressing instead of the core, get some core work in, But some people like bench pressing.
Yeah.
You got to watch your your calorie intake. I guess.
Fat pecs and stuff.
Whatever.
I don't know.
And then in terms of hash bash, I did kind of step up, which is true, but got a lot of support in a lot of key areas that also made it possible. Latrice Matson for one, Jim Salame, Don Schultz.
Yeah.
Rick and Colin.
Yeah.
Helped out too. Nick helped out from Seattle a little bit.
He was there.
He wasn't there.
Nick who?
In spirit.
Oh, Nick.
Nick Sattel.
Yeah, I thought you meant the other Nick.
And then there's there's many years of a lot of people going there and doing it that helped to kind of carry it too. And I also want to acknowledge Adam Brook. I mean, the guy's done that thing for years, and he was there, and things were unfolding, and I relied on some of his advice to get through that stuff, and I appreciate it.
Everyone did a great job. I didn't mean to overinflate your accomplishments at the.
No, you can't. It's very difficult to do that. I'm not trying to give away any of that acknowledgement.
All right,
at all.
but I do think
much deserving of that.
Adam Brook, of course, Mr. Hashbash, and all the other people that you mentioned as well.
The students, Matt Dargay really stepped up and helped out a lot, and Tom Wall, who's kind of directing the music and stuff. And of course, Lath showed up and did his thing, and that's always appreciated. Become a big part of that, and have been featured at Cannajam, also one of the main acts.
He did do his thing, didn't he? He
Will he be opening Cannajam with the
Star Spangled?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was his better version of.
If you want him to, he would, but I don't know if he would plan on doing it.
I think it was one of his better performances of the Star Spangled Banner. In years past, I mean, it's always great. It is really a remarkable observation when it's taking place. It's really something to see with him railing the Jimi Hendrix Star Spangled Banner and 9,000 people smoking cannabis.
Yeah.
Yep, it was my first time seeing him do that. That was my first time there since like I was a youngster. So it was pretty neat. It was fun.
I mean, there's a moment where you look out at the crowd and, you know, I mean, it's a protest. It's anarchy, arguably, because people are just blatantly violating the law, but it's civilized.
It's pretty great.
And to me, it's always represented with the national anthem playing in the background. It's a moment in time. It's 2 minutes and 10 seconds, I think was the length of the recording, of absolute freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you will not find a moment like that. Like, it's hard to get that. Even if you're in a concert someplace else where there's just kind of chaos and stuff, you're still worrying about the cops, you know what I mean? Or if someone's smoking can, you know what I mean? It's just a remarkable event. But
even when we were like having these restrictions a couple years ago with the lockdowns and all the other restrictions, you know, it still felt good, you know, getting your feet wet back in the waters of freedom, you know, being out there with a lot of people. It was just a good time mingling. It was a great mixture of culture out there too. I loved it.
That's true, and that's an important point to make, which is that the last couple of years there's not been a hash bash. It's been digitalized, and some of us were down there. But the point is that the gathering, you know, a lot of people hadn't really gathered at a place like that. They may not have come around last year, and they're still concerned and stuff. But it's a remarkable event. Let's talk a little bit more about that, Jamie. There was some great speakers that had a political flair to it. We're going to topic 4. Okay, all the beautiful people that we saw at Hash Bash.
Stoners, all the beautiful stoners.
There was a political element.
We saw at Hash Bash.
There's a political element this year. There's a number of legislators that spoke, and people spoke on their behalf. Those that couldn't make it. Jamie, why don't you list a few? I mean, I have a couple of people in mind: Yusuf Rabi, Eli Savitt, Dana Nessel. Name some of the other people that were there.
Alex Garza, Cynthia Johnson.
That's right.
Jimmy Wilson, and Amy Carter, who was the candidate for 68th District House Representative seat and could very well win.
I understand that. And there was
Jeff Hayner, who was a city council member, and Annie Somerville, who's been on the show, who's a Ypsilanti city council representative and also chief of staff for Senator Irwin. That's
correct. And there was also some, didn't Dingle get a message read for her? And
Leah Schuyler read a statement from Congresswoman Dingle, who she's working on her campaign, and she moves to Ann Arbor to be in the newly formed district, and is running from there. And Zara Abbas read a statement from Congresswoman Tlaib.
Right. Okay. So it was great. I thought, I had a little bit of time, and I spoke with Eli Savitt, who I don't usually like politicians. But he's an interesting.
Hope some of him rubbed off on the AG.
Well, what I said to him, which I think is important, is there's a lot of people that ran on a reform platform, and not all of them put their platform into a policy. He ran on the platform that marijuana, the war on drugs, is a failure. Don't bring me marijuana cases. As a prosecutor, I will not sign felony warrants for them. And if you don't believe me during my campaign, here it is in writing. And
he executed.
And he executed because I happen to have a pending case that he later dismissed. But that was so that's that. And then I also thought that Yusuf Rabi is now championing the descheduling of cannabis, which is a good thing. And unlike a lot of other politicians currently, it seemed like he understood the issue as he spoke about it a little bit more. I know Garza apparently is another legislator who's been pro cannabis, pro MMA and original
He introduced
interpretation.
Jaden's Law, which is the pediatric use on school grounds.
And he voted against. He was in the committee, the Judiciary Committee, maybe, and voted against things that were being voted. He's one of the one holdouts.
301 in company,
Right.
yeah.
But so I didn't want to exclude him, but I thought that Robbie really, he was speaking to the caregivers and caregiver rights, which is something you don't normally hear. But I even think that that's partly, like the use of the word caregiver in that situation has multiple meanings. It's kind of become a word used by the antagonists, the licensed businesses to describe illicit behavior. But there's a true definition of what a caregiver is, which is different than that. But the war of words is always something. But Jamie, what did you think about the Attorney General's speech?
I was fine with it. It does make sense.
What did she say? What did she talk
She
about?
didn't try to overdo it. She essentially relied on talking about how she was better than Shooty. Didn't in how I took it anyway. What I was listening to hasn't been an obstructionist, not the kind of totally proactive help that I think we were kind of expecting, but a good point as far as trying to decide who to have representing this issue, next session, next term. So I thought she did pretty well under the circumstances. I mean, we've talked about our disappointments and what we were expecting and what's actually happened and that kind of stuff. I mean, given all that, let's say,
Right,
I thought it
right.
was all okay.
Well, you have a different political climate than it was 4 years ago, right? Number one. Number two, there isn't a ballot initiative that is going to draw a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
And it's not something that a ballot initiative that unifies people to come out and vote, and then a candidate that actually supports that or verbally has supported it. But
It's going to be a problem for the Democrats this year that they're going to have to figure out how they're going to overcome, because the margins weren't so wide last time around that, people can sit on their laurels and just expect it's going to be handed to them.
true. It is a statewide election, right? So it's a total number. It's not based on electoral college.
Right.
And, she can carry the districts that won it for, the 13th and 14th districts. Or if there's a big turnout there, she could still win. The question is whether she's going to get statewide support because there's enough votes. Obviously, she did not win.
Well, I think they should be more worried about Dana's seat than Gretchen's, frankly, because if I remember correctly, the margins for Gretchen were much greater than they were between
Yeah.
Dana.
They abandoned the gubernatorial Republicans and the gubernatorial abandoned that campaign, knowing that Gretchen had it,
Yep.
and poured all the rest of the resources toward the end into the AG race because it was close.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking too. Let's talk about some of the things that she said, because I know that an interesting take you had, Jamie, which is that she's better than Shooty, right? That was one of the things she was saying. But she also suggested that if anyone else gets elected, the caregivers are going to start getting rated again.
Oh.
Right? Didn't she imply that, or did suggest that? Would you? I think there was a certain element of fear. She was talking
I
about.
have to listen to that again to totally get that, but that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I mean, I'll accept that as what she implied, because I think that.
Well, let's talk about it. Do you think that?
Like that.
I mean, one of her campaign statements, commitments was that she wasn't going to be rating caregivers. Whether that's true or not is, has any caregivers been rated?
What does that mean? Does it mean all
There's been places
caregivers
rated. State police rated a bunch of places.
State police rate a bunch of places, but that's not her call. They're going to do that when they're going to do that.
Well, that's my point.
Well, hold on. What they're going to do is they're going to, they get complaints of something. They're going to investigate, get warrants, and raid. And the raids that we know of at the first go-around were, at least by the state police or the, tobacco, marijuana unit, whatever they call themselves, were scenarios where there was commercialized activities like clubs, they were doing gifting and whatnot. There's been some of those. Okay, so that's a direct challenge to the commercial market. I'm not justifying it, but it seemed like that's what they were targeting.
But that approach is still not the activity. You can judge the activity and say, okay, we think that there's,
Why does it require
remuneration going on or something like that. And then you tell them, hey, we think this is happening, so stop it. It doesn't require a raid.
I am not saying that.
I'm not saying that you're condoning it.
Right. And I'm not defending her on anything that she's done, but I don't know that she should be, blamed for raids. The state police are going to do what the state police are going to do. She's not going to stop them. What she can do, what she has the authority to do, is to not issue criminal charges, right? And that's what seems to be going on. We know that from our own activity. I know we had a situation where a caregiver was raided. They took a lot of his property. We called to find out what's going on. They didn't really serve a notice of intent to forfeit. Nobody knew what was happening. The thing got passed around like a hot potato. We got in touch with the Attorney General's office, and they said, just deal with the police because we're not prosecuting that one. So I'm saying that's a scenario where her office chose not to go down that path.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's a good thing.
I don't think. I mean, if the sentiment was that she's better than Bill Schuette, I agree 100%.
100%. But I think the bigger concern is this. The question is, how much of an issue is this going to be this year? Because I think, one could say you're going to, if she's not employing and encouraging the police to knock out the competition of the industry, quote unquote, then there's going to be people complaining about that from the industry. And of the cannabis world, she had 100% of that population.
Yep.
This year, that may not be the case because you have a number of actors that are in the industry that employ a lot of people who could say that the reason why their businesses are challenged or the employees aren't getting more pay for their salary or whatnot is because of the competition, which are the caregivers.
It sounds reasonable if you don't really understand what's going on.
Of course. Of course.
The perspective. I met with her on the Wednesday before Hash Bash.
Yeah? What'd she say?
At one point she said, I just want to say I'm hearing from like half the industry to do one thing and half to do the other. And I said, look, there is this manufacturers association and a couple other big money interests. And they want one thing. The Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, all the relevant advocacy groups and activists don't. It's only them that want to do this stuff. And the fact that they unilaterally are driving some legislation and some attempts at policy changes and things like that should be your concern because that's not good for consumers. And it is your job to protect consumers. And I think she understood that, offered some perspective.
Well, we will see. I think it's going to be an interesting election this fall, and it's going to set for another interesting election in 2 years. But I do think that we need to take a break. Tommy's giving me the evil eye.
Why? What happened? We just got into it.
No.
We're just warming up. Okay, we can take a quick
We got
break.
some other elements of Hash Bash to come back to, but I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's come back to it. Come back. We listen to Planet Green Trees episode number 557, the Hash Bash Aftermath. We'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective. Take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Good to see you, Mr. Mike. How's it going? We're here live on your Planet Green Trees, streaming live on the channel right now. We thought we'd get a couple words and see how you're doing.
Doing pretty good. I was a little panicked getting here because the traffic was terrible. A lot of jams, the football game going on as well.
Oh yeah.
And then I got here and I saw that it hadn't started yet, and I thought that they were waiting for me.
Of course.
But it turns out they just have a power outage.
No green carpet, power outage.
And, I was disappointed. I thought that Jaime had made it so that he was waiting for me, actually. But turns out I was wrong. But it looks like a great event. And
real good turnout.
Of freedom out there. See the freedom out there?
Look at that.
Bunch of freedom. Little cannajam sign over there. October 8th. Cannajam.
Coming this fall. Everybody save that date.
Headliners over there. Headliner over there. Lathe.
All these beautiful humans here.
Someone's going to have to help me who it is, but the last World Series the Tigers went to?
84?
That's me. I'm like an 84 guy.
Okay.
They went later.
Oh, yes. 06 maybe, 04 or 06.
Right. And their leading, their top pitcher's name was...
Man.
There was 104 miles per hour, I guess. He's over there.
Really?
He's over there. The hat. What's his name?
Zumaya?
Yes. Zumaya.
Okay. Awesome.
104 mile per hour. You know what he's doing now? He's coaching Little League. That's what we have in common. I'm a Little League coach, too.
All right.
I hope he talks about how to intermingle cannabis into Little League coaching. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Bringing in the CBD for health purposes, obviously.
I'm thinking more like to doctor the ball a little bit. You know, get a little.
Yeah, get a little resin. Little resin in there.
Spin rate. It's all about spin rate.
It's all about that. You got to get the ratio. You want the drop on the curve or the change up. What about this guy Mike here?
Michael Tui's got one of the most famous cases in the history of the state of Michigan.
Komorn had the honor to be able to represent for us.
I was honored. And it went like judges are control freaks, generally speaking. They like to control people. They put them on probation. They tell them you can't use your medical marijuana card.
Right.
The Michael Tui case said that's bullshit.
Okay.
And when you have your card, the court cannot hurt you if you use medical marijuana while you're on probation. So the response when the judge says, you're ordered not to use medical marijuana while you're on probation, you give them the finger and hold your card up.
That's right.
And that's what the case represents. Despite that, we're still fighting legislation to try to undo it. It's that bad. There's actually legislation that's been introduced that's like the Michael Tui legislation to undo that shit.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know how it got there?
Clement was just telling me that he had a table full of prosecutors, like specifically saying, you know, my case and Michael Tui, the court case, and that we really pissed off a lot of people with that one, Michael.
So much so that they had to come out of pocket. They didn't have money to pay for the budget that of their courthouse, but they came out of pocket to get their lobbyists. Because every court needs a lobbyist, right? Yeah. They're not just there to interpret the law. They want to make law, go to the legislature, and introduce bills that are intended to fuck people.
That's right.
It's pretty disturbing, but that's the state we're in. What can you do?
It's amazing, humans. That guy's out here making big moves, fighting for everybody out there.
Michael Komorn changed my life.
That's what he says. Believe that. Changing lives out here, fighting for every human.
I own the Center for Compassion and Great Lakes Hemp Supplements in Traverse City. You know, we started back in June of 2009. So I came home and I was on parole in 2008 when we passed this law. So getting this accomplishment, a pass for those that are on bond and on probation and on parole, has been a goal that I've been working on since I came home from prison in 2008.
That's amazing.
So to get this case to finally go through and set precedents and set so much precedents that they had to respond with legislative change to try to overrule what was a unanimous decision in our Court of Appeals. They need to leave it alone. They need to back off. So you need to call your representatives and tell them to vote no on House Bill 5512. It's really important that we don't let them reverse the change that we fought so hard for all these years.
That's right, man, because the wrong people are in charge on that end. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, man.
Charged with a crime, you need a real attorney, and here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective: take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
That guy's great.
We're back.
All right, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. Planet Green Trees, episode number 557. It was a really busy day. Let's go back to Hash Bash. There's a couple other things we can talk about.
Sir.
I would say this, that to my good friend Dewey, who we rode together on Monday, first time in a few years, but we were planning on meeting and going up there together, and got onto I-96 to head towards our meeting spot, and it was bumper to bumper. I would have made it on time.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I had to turn around and reschedule. And Dewey and I had to meet now in Ann Arbor. Dewey tried to go through the process of paying one of the machines there. It was 20 minutes. Picked him up, drove into town. We were like, it's chaos. We were way past 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
And as
you were
we,
late.
As we learned the week before, I said to Jamie, what time is it starting? He says, are you fucking kidding me? Jamie, remember that? Remember when I asked you that question?
Yeah,
He said,
I do.
are you
Still
fucking
staying.
kidding me? Right. It starts at high fucking noon. What's wrong with you? And
That's
don't
a
be
big
late.
Saturday.
It starts the same time every year.
Every year for 50 years, 51 years. And don't call them stoners because they start on time.
It's the only fucking marijuana event that I've ever
in
been
this
to that
particular-
starts on time.
In this particular case,
So hold on.
our
So in this particular case, as I am sweating and dropping shit and trying to find a parking spot and yelling at Dewey and running ahead of Dewey and then slowing down and waiting for him. He's like, no, my knee, and blah. And we're running around, and I had no idea where I parked.
Yeah.
Just looking, and I have no idea where I'm going. Just looking for crowds and following it's like 12, let's say.
It was not. It was at least 12:20.
Roll into the fucking diag there. I'm like, I go up to Jim, like, Jamie, thanks for waiting for me. He goes, I know, it wasn't that you weren't waiting for me. But there was a power outage, Jamie, you were saying. I thought that was funny because he was like, are you fucking kidding me? He was so stressed out. He's like, it was funny. It was funny.
It is kind of important and traditional to kick off at high noon. And Tom Wall and others ran around and they got a hold of like a battery powered speaker and like a harmonica mic. And within the between noon and noon 01, we were able to get it's high noon happy hash bash out there. At least.
Yeah, it was a good kickoff.
I see. But you were carrying a lot of stress because of that power outage. Never, maybe not have happened before. I don't know.
I've never seen it happen like that.
Right.
I mean,
Do you think it was sabotage?
I don't. There's an old system there.
No.
One of the reasons that particular sound company gets used a lot is because they know not to overload it, and they tripped it somehow.
Oh.
But
Our power grid is archaic, by the way. You know
we
that,
did
right?
not get any extra time, by the way. We asked that before.
I thought we did get extra time. I thought that it went late.
It went to 4. We had between 12 and 4.
In years past.
Used to be 12 to 1 for the longest time.
And people had to be done by 1. Right, that's what I'm saying. The
university didn't want it. Oftentimes it was fought for just to even get that hour.
Yeah. Sure. Has it gone that long in years past, though? To 4?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been.
All right.
Yeah.
I know there's been some events afterwards, some music and conversation.
The music was cool this year too. I liked it a lot.
All right.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So do you know Jim? Who's the guy that helped you from home? Jim. I want to say his last name. Right.
Jim Solane.
Solane. Okay. Do you know any weird facts about him?
Weird facts.
They're good facts, but nothing.
Well, he's one of the founders of Entheo Fest, which will be on the Diag in September, and this will be the second one.
Okay.
Second annual.
All right.
He is Jazz Cabbage with us quite regularly.
Oh, he is. I did. Okay. I thought that I've seen him on there a few times.
He used to be the manager at Ohm when the other company bought it. I mean, that was part of him leaving, but he still does some stuff with them and still cares about a lot of charitable stuff. He's done a lot of work with Decrim Nature. He's focusing more on some other stuff now, but
I'm gonna have to get him on Planet Green Trees for the interview about this topic. I'm surprised you haven't explored that from him, and it just may be one of the differences of a good interviewer and some regular podcast. But I learned when I talked to him, Jamie, that come on, that's funny.
I'm assuming that you're going to say something that I have definitely talked to him about several times on Jazz Cabbage.
All right, okay, here we go. Ready? He is somewhere in his DNA makeup. He is and spends time and has spent time in Vegas and other places performing
as Dino.
Dean Martin.
Yeah,
as Dean Martin, which is such a rare musical genre that makes it just fascinating. Think about this. So who knew that there was a Brat Pack cover band, which is what he's doing, okay? And I asked him if he could play Mr. Bojangles. He goes, that's kind of Sammy. I do more of the, I don't know. It was funny. It was a funny.
King of the Road.
Is that Dino? Are you a Dino fan? Are you a Dino fan?
Yeah, but I've heard Jim do this stuff before.
Okay.
He's a good crooner-ish type singer. He also sings kind of in his natural voice, which is really good and soulful too. He's good. He's a good musician.
That's what was my takeaway. All right, so there was some talk about mushrooms there, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Entheo Fest has kind of incorporated cannabis. It's all healing plants. It's all entheogens, and there's a parallel and there's a direct relationship. So
Jim Powers.
Yeah.
As we're talking about this plant medicine, and you seem to be distracted by your phone. Is everything okay?
Everything's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think, as the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion, that Michigan Parents for Compassion will take a policy position that psilocybin should be a effective treatment for minors?
I don't think it's something that any of us have discussed. I mean, if you're asking what I would think, I think I am personally not opposed to a doctor prescribing or recommending anything for a patient. So I have a very, what some would call a radical view. I don't think it's that radical.
Right.
But if a doctor who's licensed to practice medicine says that a child should take psilocybin because of X, and they believe the potential benefit is not outweighed by the risk, then yeah.
You know, there are just some therapists who have as part of their practice helping people through a process of utilizing psilocybin for
and we talked a little bit about
purposes, and they're not doctors recommending it. They're
there may be
a lot about it, though.
There may be various different factors that are causing that. One is that if it's in Ann Arbor, they're going to be less at risk, generally speaking. Secondly, Michigan's a safe tri-state. We discussed that last week, which means that if a drug is in phase 2 clinical trials, it's safe. Our law allows that to be used as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, acquisition or sourcing is still up in the air, and protocols and procedures may be questioned, but I do think at the end of the day, Michigan's clearly it's a defendable position to be in, that you're using the safe tri-state for those purposes. And I would say Jaime pulled this up on the Google, but I'm curious to know those studies, if there's been any directed towards children. For example, we know and had heard for a long time, and I think it was part of a big part of the momentum that carried the ball for medical cannabis and its, evolution in the country's belief or philosophy that it did have medicinal value, arose when it affected kids. Like you see how these, epileptic children or muscle spasms or some neurological issues that were immediately impacted positively or subsided those conditions with the use of cannabis. I'm wondering if the same kind of stories exist for psilocybin. Jaime, do you know anything about that?
I was just looking it up since you brought it up, and there are some articles on it.
I kind of feel like they kind of stack all kinds of things negatively against any type of natural or holistic type of healing, and they'll put anything like that. I would say, like, even why would you give it to? Was it safe for children or things like that? But I kind of feel like there's always a bumpy road for any type of natural treatment.
There is, and specifically, like, mushrooms is a good example. Like, they're not legalized. We don't have a medical program yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Ann Arbor, or the county of Washtenaw, the county prosecutor said that he is not going to be charging people with their possession of psilocybin mushrooms. So
but he wouldn't take that position if it was distribution of some sort of mushroom material to a child.
Well, what I'm saying is, even if he did take that position, I think the parent of the child could argue that we're a safe tri-state. Psilocybin is in the phase 2 stages of clinical trials, which.
But they would need more than that. I mean, they would need some.
Well, what I'm saying is, if it's phase 2 clinical trials, you can defend yourself all day long. So my question is, in the phase 2 clinical trials, are they referencing to children?
Even if they're not, I think you could probably get away with it. But you're going to need
a doctor's recommendation.
Yeah,
I don't know that you need that.
I would.
Maybe under a doctor's
care.
There
is no way a jury would allow that.
It's not a jury.
It's
it's a legal issue. It'd have to be fleshed out a little bit more.
I think that would be an issue for the jury.
Well, the point is this: the parent is the one who's going to be right at issue. If the parent's using it for their own medicine, it's not an issue. We'd agree about that, right?
In what context?
It's in the medicine cabinet?
No, I'm saying that if somebody, I think that people have a right, and people have a defendable position for the possession of psilocybin mushrooms right now.
They do, but
You might get
but under
arrested.
the right to try, I'm fairly certain there's medical care involved in that. Like you can't. It's not just I'm going to try it and I'm going to go obtain this new, investigative drug, and there's not going to be some sort of doctor's care that's going to occur.
No, yeah, there's no
there is a
call
controlled
or directive to a doctor to be involved in that.
In the right to try
now,
it?
there's nothing that's involved in, I don't believe that has to do with that.
Well,
I believe it could help something else.
There's no public, methodology that's been accepted in Michigan. It's not like if you went to, the guide to how to use medical psilocybin.
I'm not talking about psilocybin. I'm talking about right to try.
Okay. What about it?
Do you or do you not need to be under a doctor's care to invoke it as a defense?
I think something to think about, and we're going to find out right now. I think that there's a big difference of cannabis, as we're discussing here. Cannabis Schedule 1, so psilocybin. However, there's no phase 2 clinical trials that are occurring for cannabis.
Right. Here we go.
I got it. It has authorized to and use experimental treatments for patients with an advanced illness.
Has received a recommendation from his or her physician for an investigational drug, biological product, or device. So that's the key, right? That would make sense to me, and that seems reasonable. And maybe it extends beyond a doctor. I mean, if it gets to the point where they believe a therapist should have access to be able to recommend this sort of thing, I don't know that I'd be opposed.
It does acknowledge the patient is a minor.
Say medical doctor?
It says doctor.
No, it says
physician, I think.
Treating physician.
Physician, okay.
Has an advanced illness. No, it just says attested to by the treating physician that they have the illness. Eligible patient means an individual who meets all the following.
Yep.
Has an advanced illness attested to by the patient's treating physician.
Yep.
So that's not to say.
Keep going.
All right. Has considered all their treatment options.
Aren't in a right to try it.
Currently has received recommendation for his or her physician for an investigative drug, biological product, or device.
There you go.
He received a recommendation from his or her physician. Has given written informed consent for the use of the investigative drug. From his or her physician that he meets the requirements of the subdivision. But there's another section. Let me see.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, they just need the doctor's recommendation, right? They're good to go.
But a lot of people are going to use mushrooms without qualifying for like having an advanced illness or all that kind of shit. I mean, it's what you're saying is true. I didn't realize they were
in the form of a way like everybody got the marijuana cards that really didn't have like medical issues. They got they'll probably get the same kind of cards if they had to get one to get the psilocybin as well, maybe.
Well, maybe, but I mean, the other thing here is that when they talk about an advanced illness, it's fairly broad. It means a progressive disease that entails significant functional impairment. I mean, it sounds horrible, but so does severe and chronic pain until you really start to dig into what that really means.
And they use it for like addiction treatment as well and other things, things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the pot doc mills should start adding this in.
Yeah, that's right.
Make a couple extra bucks.
Yeah.
See, the one thing that I think is interesting here is that the use and treatment as it's been outlined in the clinical trials involves dosing the patient, and then they stay with the babysitter essentially, who is not necessarily a physician.
Right.
So there's that is a procedural phenomena. So if the doctor's recommended, you're going to be interacting with the babysitter / counselor /
But there's nothing abnormal about that.
No, I know that, but the oversight
is still being performed by the doctor.
It doesn't require oversight. It requires a recommendation, right?
But in your instance, that's what's happening. Is the doctor is providing oversight. I don't think there's a reason that it legally that it has to be provided.
So I think the other interesting thing is that this law also is designed to protect the physicians from licensing sanctions.
Right.
That's really the other significant point.
But it's a state law.
It's a state law.
Good stuff to know. But, you know.
And here you go, this is another one. An official employer or agent of the state shall not block or attempt to block an eligible patient's access to investigative drug, biological product, or device. In other words, or interfere with counseling, advice, recommendations consistent with...
That should cover cannabis when people want to bring it into hospitals.
It's kind of exciting in a way that the way everything is kind of changing with the times as well, because I feel like a lot of these things are coming to the table because people are more open to other treatments other than just like, the synthetic pharmaceutical way. I think it's just gaining more momentum. People are just open and minding, trying, not even psilocybin, even like going to do ayahuasca treatments and other things like that, just mind expanding treatments. And I just think it's changing with the times. A lot of people are seeing it as a more of a, not as a bad thing anymore. It wasn't like a taboo.
Right. I mean, it should be, you have to understand when they're talking about the qualifier here, like the LSD is not on this list yet.
Right.
It's not on this list yet. It may have been, but for Timothy Leary. But on this list is psilocybin, MDMA, ecstasy, and ketamine.
Yep.
Those three, ketamine K, what is it?
And ketamine is already there. Like you can get a prescription for ketamine today.
Understood. And of course, so my point is that the other important part of this statute is that it very clearly identifies that insurance companies are not responsible and they don't have to pay.
Yes.
And no patient can force a manufacturer to provide them the biological product, device, or drug. You know what I mean? Like, so that no one's compelled to do this, no manufacturer. That's another interesting factor. They've got this availability. Manufacturer of an investigational drug, biological product, or device may make available an eligible patient, and an eligible patient may request a manufacturer's investigational drug, biological product, or device under this act. So, I don't, like the idea that this manufacturer is going to have a license to do that, or an FDA license, is not likely.
Right.
They may get some permission from some...
It happens fairly often.
We are diverging wildly from going over hash bash.
All right, fine. Well, it was about mushrooms.
Jeez.
I arrived. I don't know if this is on. I can't tell.
A lot of the work of the decriminalized nature people, of course, was very fitting to be involved in hash bash because that work parallels exactly the cannabis movement. Like they asked me to speak at EntheoFest last year on that subject of how cannabis kind of helped to pave the way for understanding the processes of and opening people's mind to the idea of healing plants and other factors like that. So there were other people too. Like we obviously we tried to highlight those who have been really active in activism and advocacy in the last year or so, and of course a lot of that's been about challenging the really stupid local ordinances, really restrictive local ordinances, and the shitty legislation that we're talking about, like 5301 and the MCMA and big money interest type driven policy changes. And then we also paid tribute to some of the history and legacy and had some Adam Brook, obviously. I mean, he gave tribute to John, who couldn't be there, who was in the hospital. And he brought Joel Zamaya with him, which is cool. He told me he was going to bring somebody with him. And a lot of people appreciated that. Dr. Detroit, Dr. Whitty, introduced Dana, gave a little address himself first. Richard Clement, of course,
bringing the weed.
Was around, and he introduced Michael Toohey and Representative Johnson, who he works for. He's on staff for as the weed expert. I think they refer to him, something like that. And there was a couple funny moments. One was when Representative Johnson came down and grabbed the mic away from Richard. He started introducing her, and he's doing a really good job. And he was at a certain point, I'm thinking, wow, he's doing a really good job with his introduction. And then he just keeps on rambling on for a while. So she ran down there and just grabbed the mic out of his hands.
I saw that.
That was a good one. And then there was a lady who snuck on.
What was that all about? Explain that.
Well, I guess she does it all the time. And
I heard she assaulted you.
Things. Yeah, well, no, not really. But
she assaulted Dangerous Dan.
It got more intense than necessary, that's for sure.
It reminded me of one of those Snickers moments, because like it seemed like 5 minutes after that whatever happened, she was all happy with a giant joint on the side of the steps over there. All she needed was a
Detroit knows her
joint.
and helped out with that, I'm pretty sure. And she does that a lot, I guess, in years past. She stayed on there for a while, and I shouldn't have let her on, but she snuck past security and everything, and just said that she wanted to tell people about the different petitions. And I thought if she sticks to that, okay, but we're really hurting for time because of the power stuff. And she started rambling on. So we had to stop her and had to unplug the mic, had to, take it out of her hands and make a big deal about it. It was stupid, but it happened. But we moved on. And there's more proud moments during that presentation, but that went down. It was a pretty cool day overall, in spite of a couple of those glitches. A lot of people came together to make it good, make it work well, and everything. So there was an order of things. There were general times, all that kind of stuff. None of that mattered anymore. At some point, I had to satisfy a few things, like the Attorney General's appearance. Michael Thompson had a certain time window. A couple of the representatives. So that kind of stuff had to be taken care of. But everybody kind of rolled with it. Otherwise, and unfortunately, I overlooked Ida representing Michigan Cannabis Industry Association. I really wanted those guys included, because they've been really helpful this last year as far as, advocacy goes and helping to be in opposition of those shitty bills and stuff like that. So I kind of messed up on that one, but all in all, that part of the hash bash was good. I never made it to Monroe Street Fair, but I did go Friday and Sunday to the Hash Bash Cup and the Glen map treasure hunt that Josie was on talking about a couple of weeks ago. Went really well. Some good money was raised to help get expungements, and there was a list of prize winners who entered into the prize drawing.
What do they win? What do they win?
On Tuesday, they won a lot of swag and.
Josie said free weed.
Yeah, well, that was like the treasure hunt. You go around and pick up the free weed, and then you demonstrate that you did that, and then you can enter different ways into this.
Oh, I see.
Prize drawing, and you get like, custom hand blown glass, and there's a lot of shit. And the number one prize was like a weekend in Ann Arbor with like a Weber's Inn with a really nice dinner and a tour around town on the cannabis.
It's a very high, the games of chance and sweepstakes is a very highly regulated industry, more so than the cannabis industry.
Very much so.
I'm sure she was in compliance with all that.
I don't know why you would bring that up.
Whatever, I might have used different words that might throw people off. Just to be clear, all possible perfect legal things took place.
Yes.
All vetted through the legal department. Of which there actually is one. We work with a lot of lawyers, and there was one hanging out in conversation with all this stuff, and just for real life.
I was just making a joke. My sister works in that industry, and every time we give away a sweatshirt, she's looking over my shoulder. You know what I mean? One of those kind of things. But you can imagine, like for like Pepsi or Coke, the ones that do like big sweepstakes and stuff. There's a lot of temptation to give stuff to family members or, whoever's got the control of the sweepstakes.
we did allow any, like.
I'm not saying that Josie did that. I was. I
No,
thought
but here's what it did happen. There were people involved who bought a map and did it, and their name was in the prize drawing. And like Brenda, Josie's mom, did win, but then she declined the prize and had us draw somebody else just so there wouldn't have the appearance of that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was legitimate. It was by purchasing a map, by doing the treasure hunt, and then by it randomly being selected. So, I guess you do have to be careful about that stuff, but I guess I didn't have a problem with it.
Now that you brought it up, and just there's a possibility that she may have had something to do with where the treasures were buried.
Yes.
That might flow, and there may be some concerns about her treasure hunting.
Right.
But she did the right thing, it sounds like. But that's, I don't know. I mean, lawyer and me. All right. So let's talk about some other. Are we done with Hash Bash? I mean, it's hard to leave it.
Yeah, I mean, there's other stuff that happened at the Cup that was pretty interesting. It's been, I mean, there's really good music there. There's a lot of really good cannabis floating around. Good nonprofit organizations doing their thing. Just a surreal scenario for those who haven't checked it out yet. They should next year.
Jaime, what was your thoughts? I know you did some interviewing and whatnot. You said you had.
Yeah, I had a blast. I got there early with the wife. We went through and stopped through the street fair a little bit. Got some food. Got mysteriously hungry. Got some food, and then got closer to the event, and got another weird munchy hit, and stopped at Frank's. Got a really awesome burger. Shout out to Frank's. And then there was a lot of people watching. It was because, like I said, I got there earlier than I planned, and because I planned a little too ahead for traffic, which I guess ain't a bad thing. And I had a great time, doing a lot of people watching. Like I said, saw a set of senior ladies when we were speaking of psilocybin earlier, stopping by one of the mushroom tellers out there in the street. It was pretty great, interesting. They were getting all this quick crash course on mushrooms. And it was a group of ladies. They all enjoyed it. Looked like they had a great time as well. And then
you explained a little more. Like there's a table.
No, not a table. There was a couple individuals out there, doing their thing. There was a few people out there.
When you say doing their thing, were they giving away mushrooms?
Independent vending. Yeah, they were doing
mushrooms.
Vending. Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
And a group of seniors. They were like these old women. There's about 4 of them, and they were all asking information on it, and they all purchased some. It looked like they had a blast.
They were going to make some tea.
Oh yeah, it looked like they had a great time. And then when we were doing interviews, everybody was really awesome, giving us a little bit of their time. There was some quite wild characters out there. It was a great time. Like I said, just people watching alone was just a blast. And then, like I said, watching some of these people get experiences. I got a lot of free gifts from people. It almost looked like I had a commissary. Like I was just loaded up when I left out of there. And I was just loaded up with all kinds of free gifts that I got to take home and enjoy later. And had a lot of footage, got a lot of good interviews. Thanks to Mike up there, I caught you on the staircase. You threw a couple gems my way. Appreciate that. That was a lot of fun. And I really appreciate you guys giving me that opportunity too, because I got a lot of good networking out there, and I had a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun all together.
It's a good crowd. It's always there's always some staples, Jamie. Like some old schoolers and old timers that friendly
Matt
face.
Didn't come this year. He's normally there. That was kind of a weird one. The first Matt Abel from the Cannabis Council.
I saw Thomas Levine though.
Tom covered for him.
He was representing. Yeah.
Yep. And DJ Short was not there. He's usually there. Senator Irwin's usually there. He wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah, so there was some of that too.
I saw. I won't mention which place, but it was one of the places in Ann Arbor retail store. It was an interesting dynamic. It kind of made. It's a good kind of final visual as we were leaving. So I see this retail place. I know the people that own it, and I was going to go in there and say hello. And there was a line out the door. Out the door and down the sidewalk. And then there was a dude that posted up on a table on his front lawn.
The hustle.
With like a scale and a bag and some plastic bags and just throwing shit into pulling people out of the line to his posted up table. It was wild.
That's gone on ever since there's been dispensaries, man.
I know. But it was that's Hash Bash, right? You can get your
That's it. You don't like it, don't go to Hash Bash.
Right. State weed or.
We had, one thing too I wanted to mention. Do you remember when there was a woman on here who was a researcher?
Yeah.
And the study in part data came from her approaching people at Hash Bash.
Yeah, I remember you tearing her
ago.
apart too.
So they request. I didn't bring it up. But her and her husband approached me through email and asked if they could be there and conduct another study, and sent the last study. And I go, oh fuck, I remember this.
Yeah.
Like they thought it was important. I mean,
you were really mean to her, Jamie.
Not to well.
Was this when we were at Tommy's place?
It was frustrating.
We were at Tommy's place when we were interviewing her, I think.
I don't remember, but I
think that's the case. 'Cause I think Charmy was there. It was frustrating because they weren't saying like just use it for harm reduction. They were saying use it from in a more harm reduced way from other ways of using it. And that just was a frustrating scenario. I wish I had that one back. I don't believe I would behave the same.
Oh, I thought you behaved in an appropriate way. I thought it was good. It's good to get it out there, Jamie.
He was exceptionally hyper active, out of the norm for him.
Yeah.
Like there's other people that piss him off.
That's why it's funny to me.
And he contains himself.
Yeah, that was what did it with
funny.
Jamie. Jamie's usually cool as a cucumber.
There's a few that just get to him.
If you read the study, there's some couple of things in there. You just go, Jesus, you don't fucking get this at all, And there's a lot of assumptions that they base stuff on.
What's the conclusion? That people are using cannabis dangerously.
Very dangerous. Let's get Dangerous Dan in here. He'll tell us.
Dangerous ways of using cannabis. Yeah. So anyway, but they were there because they wanted to do more studying, so that was cool. And then a couple other groups.
What were they studying? Did you get any insight?
No, I suppose I could email them and ask them.
I think we should find out because I think
let's get them on the show.
We should fact check their data.
Let's get them on the show. We should talk about that. That's not a bad idea.
I'm sure they'll be excited to come on the show.
Well, they were
Planet Green Trees. What was that?
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about harm reduction, isn't the old adage of you give a group of ladies a case of wine, they'll flip over a table and start a fight. You give them a bag of cannabis, they'll do a TikTok. I mean, isn't that some truth?
Mushrooms, they'll have a good time at an event.
Maybe.
Just a bag of cannabis. You don't have to take it to the mushrooms. I'm just saying for their studies, that's the example.
Well, I mean, it's been seen, it's been witnessed that both ladies can do a couple of mushrooms and they sit around and have a good time.
Why is he pushing mushrooms now?
Who?
Jamie, it's a cannabis story.
It's all empty because I'm just now.
Do you think that they're
mixing all entheogens now?
Do you think fine? That's fine. But we were talking about the study of these. Do you think that they're going to include in the study the nature of the humans and their self harm based on their psilocybin?
Self harm.
No, the psilocybin.
I don't know what the study's about at all. But I do know. I'm pretty sure that the decriminalized nature group set up shop right next to them.
Good.
Under the same canopy, so maybe there was a connection in that study.
There could have been. Huh.
Yeah, I'll have to ask Mike Williams.
Yeah.
A couple of things that weren't mentioned were some things that Jim that were just buried. Kind of. Do you think that should have been discussed more? Here we are at a protest.
Yeah.
We're kind of happy legalization happened.
Yeah, I mean...
Could have been worse if it wasn't Dana Nessel. But doesn't anyone feel like the world of cannabis in Michigan is destroyed in some way? Like it's kind of...
Well, a lot of people brought up, the big money interests and the shitty legislation and what's going on the local level and stuff. That was a big part of the message too.
I mean, wherever we are right now,
and
this is a good transition to the marijuana prices plummet in Michigan. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, that reality, and I don't really have skin in this game, in terms of what the price is for marijuana. I mean, I represent persons that are, but I'm not in that concept. But I'm just saying, for the purposes of the actors and players, whomever they may be, whether it's illicit operators, caregivers,
whatever,
or businesses,
they're
right?
Market participants.
The participants are going to be less attracted to any of that, right? First of all, the story has been. The caregiver prices dropped significantly, almost not making it worthwhile. I think a fair assessment of that is that nationally speaking, there's 32, 33 states that have some way made it less penal to engage in cannabis activity, and therefore there's less risk nationally, right, state to state.
Yep.
And when there's less risk like that, you're going to have more people involved, and the market is going to be oversaturated.
Yep.
While that's taking place, and that's talking about the illicit stuff that's taking place, and you had the rollout of the MMFLA, which would not have survived. There would have been a state of emergency, and the governor entered an order allowing caregivers to use their overages and take it there, and that kind of invited a whole new concept of how, not new concept, but certainly a transparent concept that allowed people to, be motivated for work and to come and get involved, and there was some plays there. And that kind of I think created a lot of activity, right? And they shut it down, and what are they going to do? Who knows? But there's still a lot of activity. At the same time, in shutting that source down for the medical market at the time, we have the licensed growers catching up now, right? Those licenses that were not producing are now producing, not just medical, but recreational.
Yep.
And on top of that, you have huge grows. There's a couple of, Jim, what are the 10,000 plant grows? Or facilities that are doing.
There's that one that we talked about that was going to have 80,000 or something like that.
Yeah. So the idea is right, and there's more and more. There's more and more outdoor grow getting into the market, which is fine, but it all happens, October, November, December.
Yeah.
So there's always a huge influx then, and in the months after that, you get a couple of these places that hit their mark in terms of production. Now, the idea is that the more supply there is, the price is going to go down, right? The other issue is this, and this is another argument about kind of hash bash related and also the plummeting market. Like I asked the question before, like what are some of the things to complain about? Well, now that all this is happening, that there's so much more of a supply, it is not from a superior quality. Like of the legal sources that are producing cannabis into the regulated market to retail stores, under no circumstances is the production of that cannabis statewide or from the people that are producing the most. It's not, I would say this, it is not trusted for what its represented as. What do I mean by that? Well, number one is the stamp of approval for the MRA is to suggest that it's been tested, it's passed testing, and there's an accurate representation on the label from the testing in the categories that are sought to be tested. THC, CBD, terpenes, etc. And we know that on the shelves at a majority of the facilities that retail, flower, 2/3, 65, 70%, was tested by Veritas Labs.
Yep, which is absolutely true.
Veritas Labs is the laboratory that was involved with the biggest recall of cannabis in the history of the United States. 3 months worth. And when I say Hash Bash didn't discuss this, I mean this, that the protest of even legal weed, legal cannabis is almost warranted, but they get a pass. It's not as bad. There's less suffering, but the way they've done it by this oversaturated the market and then making the entry into this market a huge hurdle, huge expenses, right? And then base this whole state cannabis principle on this stamp that is supposed to guarantee that you are getting what it represents. And to get at that table, people have to spend money, lawyers, application fees, licensing fees, insurance, build outs, approvals locally, all kinds of stuff. Now, this is also that the state can represent to the consumer that this is safe and worth the price, whatever it might be. But what we know is that, just one example, Veritas lab that tests and is a majority of the business, which is a question that you may ask, why would that be? But 3 months of marijuana that they had tested was recalled, $480 million.
Mm-hmm.
And for 14, 15 days, they were retesting the material.
Yep.
And over 60% of the retesting of the material failed again.
Right.
And when the court ruled that only one of the labs was still subject to the recall and the other lab was freed up of the recall, that knowingly not passing testing, knowingly failed, knowingly received the stamp of approval that it had passed, when everyone, including that lab and the state of Michigan, knew that it had failed. And they put it onto the shelves without a warning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is legal cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
That's legal cannabis. And that's what's flooding the marketplace. I have
2 questions.
70% of the flour on the shelves is tested under these circumstances. That laboratory unequivocally will pass failed product and lie about it. They didn't make an announcement that they've just released. They can't ever argue safe cannabis doing that. And how can the state do that either? It doesn't make any sense. That is what is taking place. And nobody's doing anything about it. And you know who's still operating? Not only are they still operating, they're still passing shitty product. Because they still can. And you know what they're doing now? They're inflating the shit out of the THC levels without a care or concern.
Do you think the consumer gives a shit? Really?
Well,
I can tell you they don't. They don't care. They don't care about any of this shit. The consumers know that weed is getting cheaper and they can go to a store and buy it.
I think if they knew they were being lied to,
they would not care. And it's partly our fault. I
think any consumer that learns, I mean, we have a Consumer Protection Act. Whether or not the agency itself is immune or these businesses are maybe subject to some liability is a legal question. But basically speaking, what is taking place here is a violation of the general principles of why we have government, right? You can't have a business that's lying to people, that's saying, here's the product, or we're going to promise you this and not deliver, right? If you're going to get into business and have a license to be in business, the oversight and regulation is about all of those things, all of them. And the reason people, at least the falsity, the representation by the state is, it used to be illegal, but if you buy it in our stores, it's legal now and it's guaranteed safe. That is, to me, a falsity.
It is, but the consumers don't care.
Well, they don't know.
They don't, even if they knew, they wouldn't.
I don't know. Some might care if there was another option.
The state wanted to go down the road of trying to protect consumers, but by ruling of the judge that medicine even known to have failed testing had to go back onto the market.
Let me ask you this. Ask you this way. If there was any legitimacy for the testing protocols, in other words, the complaint that illicit marijuana, which never hurt anybody, or caregiver marijuana.
That's why they don't care. What you just said.
Okay, wait. Okay, wait. but the state separating those things out of complete fraud. Okay, and Jamie, this is the point. I don't know. I think if you told this to most people, and of course the premise here is, well, look, the consumer's going to go where they can get what they think is the best cannabis for the best price.
Yep.
And if it's going to be in a store because they're lying to you and they don't know the difference, maybe they don't know the difference.
If they smoke it, tastes good, they get the desired effect. Who gives a shit? I mean, really? I mean, I get it, right? Like, these people are supposed to be participating in this regulated system and providing this service, and they're not. And there's question into the accuracy of the results, and There's science at stake. Like, I get all of that, and I agree 100%. And I think they should be taken to task to it.
Well,
but the consumers don't give a shit.
Okay, but here's the thing. Jamie said
there's a lot of people who get excited about the THC number, and they don't want contaminated cannabis. They don't want cannabis that's failed the microbial testing, or they don't expect that if they're.
So you disagree with Jim? You think the consumer, if they knew?
I know that people get excited about the THC number. That's a huge problem.
Right. So that's the point. So that's inflated.
So okay. So all right. Well then, let's do this. Wait.
If it's true that when you walk into some stores, as Jamie said originally, and they say it, oh, you want some of this high THC over here.
Yeah, over here.
Okay, and you buy it based on that.
Yep, and that's cool. And then 2 days later, there's a recall.
Just
tell me that there's a recall from the MRA, and they say that all the testing was shitty for this specific strain of flower from this specific grower, and the testing was overly inflated. Is that person going to take that marijuana, get in their car, and go back to the shop and return it because they were informed the testing was wrong? And even further than that, are they going to stop going to that shop because of that one instance? And I would vehemently state that no, they're not going to give a shit.
You can't ask the question and give the answer. Come on. You think I'm going to argue with you? I might agree with you about. Yeah. I might agree with you about. I don't know all right. I mean, most people. I don't know. Like if you take home some lettuce and it turns out it's got whatever and there's a recall on it, you usually throw it away. You mean I go back and get.
But even throwing it away, you've already smoked it. You're like, yeah, it's okay. Like, who gives a shit?
Well, if it was a dangerous chemical,
is it?
No, I'm saying mold versus some.
I mean, maybe.
All right, but let me say this to you: if they find out that the THC content was lied about, they may return it for that reason.
You think?
And this is what I'm saying. I think I'm trying to divide that group of people. Because if the market is driven by THC content, and you find out that the people are buying, it's like someone that's into silver. They're buying a bunch of silver or gold or something like that. They find out that it's really, 75%, and it's like got some strange other metal mixed in. You gotta, extract it out. You know what I mean? Someone's like,
but they're not holding on to this.
Or it's like buying some meat at the butcher. And you think you're buying 2 pounds of meat, the butcher's got his thumb on the scale, and you get home and you put in your thing, and it's like a pound and a quarter, right? Or whatever. I mean, like you're going to go back and fucking complain.
Maybe. I don't. That it
well, listen, you may not be in a position. You may be more in tune with the impact of mold or fungus on a plant, and is that going to kill you? Versus, but you don't buy into THC. I want to do my pecs every day and do some benching. No. You're not doing that. No. Maybe I'll do some squats.
No.
You're doing. You're yes, but other people are driven by that. That's the hot shit. They tell their friends.
Maybe the entourage effect is an old people's game. Is that the case, Jamie?
I don't know what that means necessarily.
Well, I'm just saying if
the ensemble effect too.
Yeah, I mean, either one. It's for old people.
He's making the argument that
the kids are all.
My complaining about the fucking moldy cannabis that is falsely passed with a stamp from the state that people are buying in the stores. That's in abundance.
By a judge's order.
We're going to come back to that. But the question for right now, I want to address that, Jim. It's very, very important that I address that because I think you're not seeing it in full. But before we get to that, Jim argues that most consumers,
yes,
if they learn that there's a recall because of mold or not passing a microbial test, that they don't give a shit. They're just going to keep it. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I've had joints that fit that description, and I've just smoked them anyway.
See?
Okay. Well, that's Jamie Law.
But that's different. That's different than people who care about THC in the marketplace.
Okay, we're not there yet. They're not there yet. And first of all, you may not be the atypical cannabis person, right? You may even hold yourself out as.
People do care about that stuff. People want refunds and stuff like that.
Well, it may not be the person that's going to smoke it's got mold on it doesn't give a shit. There may be someone that is pissed off that they were lied to, and they, maybe not. Okay, but the class of individuals who are buying cannabis that is high in THC is a reality. That's a huge group, and if they are buying cannabis for that reason and it's misrepresented,
they're taking it back. It's like, oh, this is only 28, and they said it was 31. Shit.
I don't know.
Son of a bitch.
I think it's a different. Jamie, is that group of people more likely to be pissed off?
The people that give a shit about like THC and stuff.
Yeah. If I'm a guy that buys high THC, I gotta have 30. I get on my friends like this is hot fucking shit over here.
30.
There's
30 plus.
Some exotics or something. You know what I mean? 35.
This is that fire dank.
Right. And then you learn that lab is inflating the THC. And you walked into the dispensary and they said, or the retail place, and they said, we got this 35 THC over here. That's what you're looking for, right? Yeah, I'm all about THC. Give me some of that.
Yeah.
And you walk out, and then you learn later on, that lab is inflating THC. It's by 15%.
Yeah, it's
like rolling up the odometer on the weed. I don't get it. No, it's gonna.
Well, I would hope, first of all, that it could be used as a basis for trying to educate that person on
Forget that. Forget that. I'm asking, is someone going to return it? Is that going to piss somebody off?
I doubt it. I would smoke the weed, and they would say there's a recall.
I think if somebody had a like a fair experience with the cannabis, they're not necessarily going to get blame that.
No one gives a shit.
Make a big deal about it at that point.
I do.
But they care about it at the point of when they're buying it. That is.
You know why? Okay.
Problem.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, listen. Some people
more specific about like would they return it if there was a recall because of the THC number? I don't think very many people would. I think you just have it in your possession. You fucking smoke.
Okay, but are they going to go back to the same place?
Yeah.
And buy the same inflated THC valued marijuana?
Maybe if they like the last one.
I don't know if they do that or not.
Probably with a different name on it.
Yeah, who knows? But they're not going to not go back.
Well, they may say something like, I got to have the high THC, but who tested it?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
All right. And Jamie, let me.
The guy behind the counter.
All right, so
yeah, I did it.
That was a that little exercise we did there would be a completely subjective speculation on all these other people that we don't know, but we're talking about it. Okay, so it may happen, it may not. But for purposes,
but it won't.
Whatever it is, what it is. I can't argue. You don't know. I mean, I'm not. Who's the reasonable? Like the law school would say. Well, the answer is what the reasonable person would say. It's the jury. Whatever. But but I think this. The hash bash and what wasn't protested was that I described, whether the consumers know or not, and they may not have been the cannabis community that we know and love, but I know that 5 years ago, if we knew, I don't know, I don't think we could have predicted we would have gotten to this point, or that we're describing our cannabis industry is in fact a major fucking fraud. That's the state of cannabis. And the price of it is that it's saturated with lies. Stop. Lies. Saturated with lies, falsities, misrepresentations, not just on the health of the substance, the paying for more and all the shit that goes along with it, just so the state can get its tax money. They're getting paid no matter what. At the expense of who?
But it was like this before.
Well, my point is that then we didn't need to change it. But we did change it. We've totally restructured the power grid. Certain individuals are killing it, and they're eating up other ones that are out, and they're losing money. Mm-hmm. And the value of whatever this is that we're talking about is being eaten up by this fraud. The cannabis is turned into fraud. The whole premise that the state's gotten behind to get $3 billion is based upon the idea that they are knowingly allowing something that is not what it is represented on their stamped approval state bag to get into the marketplace, and specifically is contrary to the messaging and guaranteeing of this regulated industry that you're going to get cannabis that's past testing. Now, I realize that may not make a difference to many smokers, according to Jim. I'm saying that's a terrible state of affairs, especially in light of the way that it has impacted Michigan's cannabis market. I don't know that. I mean, it's good.
But let's talk about that.
It's good in some ways that you can buy.
It's good in a lot of ways. I mean, if you look at this from a consumer perspective, and I realize this isn't a popular opinion, and I'm okay with that. The price of quality cannabis has come down significantly.
I was going to say this, that the price of cannabis has come down significantly. I agree, though. And that's good because it's more accessible, right? But
unless people are going to jail,
the acceptable, the quality and the falsity and the lack of integrity.
Yeah. But isn't that really any industry?
Well, I don't know about that, and I don't know that. See, I think a lot of it has to do with this particular lab. Maybe I'm a little bit hypersensitive because I think know some of the people that are in charge of it. I know that they've done bad things in the past.
Have a pattern of skewing science to achieve a particular outcome.
Jamie, let me say this. Let me say why this is disappointing. Okay, because if you're going to buy into the idea that the regulated system is good for the state of Michigan, okay, and arguably it is in some of the things that have been, some of the revenue that's been generated because of it. Let's call it $3 billion, right? Now, the problem is, Jamie, that the MRA is beholden with the governmental responsibility of regulating the industry. That means that if there's a complaint, they have a duty to investigate, inspect, issue a complaint formally through the procedural steps when the Attorney General gets involved and prosecutes a complaint against a business. And there's a whole slew of published businesses that have gone through this. And you can see the types of penalties that get levied. It's all public. Now, the reality is that in order to get the recall status, the MRA is the exclusive arbiter of it. They're the agency that oversees it. That's their duty. They found that there was problems that required the recall. They did that for safety purposes, okay? For whatever reason, the knowingly that after the court ruled that one of the labs did not have to comply with the recall, and that the state and Veritas, and the industry knew that this is failed marijuana. Now, at that point, if the industry has any integrity, that is never going to find itself in the marketplace. The only reason that it got on there was because Veritas wanted to interpret the injunctive relief of enjoining the recall at that lab as allowing them to take knowingly tested cannabis, stamp it for approval, and release it to the market. That is not necessarily the proper interpretation.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And in order for them to do it, the MRA had to give them permission. Now, before the MRA gave them permission, if they had any integrity, they would have revoked or suspended their license. They had the choice of letting a huge ton shit of failed marijuana represented in a bag that said it had passed all testing and it's safe. And I'm not saying it's unsafe, but the representation is a falsity. If they say they define safe by this, and they know that it's not this and they represent it as being.
Meredith method.
So my point is that the MRA failed to act as well. And the problem is, it's a bigger problem, is that the
still under investigation by the MRA?
You'd think there would have been a complaint levied.
You'd think.
But there's nothing, and I don't think anything's going to happen.
Don't care.
What?
The consumers.
Forget the consumers.
They don't care.
Well, that's not up to them.
Well, they could file a complaint. They could sue.
Right, and maybe they will. But my point is this: as we sit here today,
where the hell are they?
Listen to me. As we sit here today, how is this any different than the quote-unquote illicit market?
Well, that's my point.
There's probably more integrity in the illicit market.
I would agree there probably was, but that's not what we have now. And
Okay, so my point is this is a hash bash talk. Okay, I'm back to hash bash. This is a reality. Our legalization came at this expense, and I'm just drawing the issue out. I'm trying to kind of lay out a point of discussion of, and it's. And all of the huge grows are testing through there.
Yep.
And they're producing crappy weed that's inflated and not passing testing. I mean,
Then why are people buying it?
Because it's on the shelves.
Getting remediated, too, before it gets tested for the first time.
People are buying it. That's my point.
Listen, there's statistical data that has been collected that represents something to this effect. That there's like an average mean of the total amount of cannabis that's tested by, Lab A.
Uh-huh.
And Lab A is a representation of every single lab in the state of Michigan except Verdict.
Yep.
They have an average finding aspergilla. What is it?
Yeah, aspergillus.
Aspergillus in like 9 to 10% across the board.
Right.
Across the board.
Yep.
Veritas, 0.8.
Yeah, they're better, I guess.
0.8. I mean, and they're doing 70% of the market share. So this in and of itself would be considered in science.
They make their own.
This would be considered in science an anomaly.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like this could not be.
It would require further investigation.
It would. There's only one way that it could happen.
That's not true.
I'm saying to you, if you take the concept here,
Yep.
is blind selection. There's no, placement and predicted terms. They're taking all the cannabis in the state of Michigan.
Yep.
And 9 labs are testing, saying there's 10% aspergilla. 10% of those fail because of aspergilla, and one lab is saying 0.8% doesn't. That is.
There's more than one way that can happen. That's my point.
Well,
I'm not saying they're not all nefarious bullshit ways.
Well, I would say to you that it would, because it's an anomaly compared to the inability to reproduce it in any other method or by any other lab, taking the same sample using the same methods 9 times differently, it would suggest that should not, it's not scientifically.
It requires further investigation.
I don't think you can call it scientifically proven. It lacks scientific
certainty. Maybe
they just use different, they use a different standard.
Well, it could be.
No, they don't.
Based on the way that they approach it, they come up with these results.
It could be.
They don't report their data. They pass material that is visibly. There's a.
But it's been remediated.
There's the article where the woman is described looking at the thing and saying that it was like mite shit or something like that.
Oh, little mite shit. It's been remediated.
She was looking over the shoulder. Oh no, right? No. There's a. The most important thing you got to understand from the Veritas case was that they were the approval of the microbial test, the passive microbial test, requires the production of data, which includes the oven that they heat it up in and the time frame that it's in the oven for, because the process of the plating and the growing of the mold at a certain temperature for a certain period of time is what it's got to be run through. And when there was no data to support that.
Yeah.
And they're passing all this, and they say we don't have to produce the data. All right, that's a problem. And the other thing is that, all right, so, I mean,
whatever it's worth, I've asked about 3 or 4 other labs. If you were asked the same question, would you have been able to give them those numbers? And they've all said yes. I mean, whatever that means. I've just asked out of curiosity.
Here's something else. I don't know if you know this. The data that's supplied, because they're constantly required to produce their data. The data that's supplied is not public. Mm-hmm. Other states have public, and one of the solutions to this is that it produces transparency to which they're subject to scientific scrutiny of others, right? So any other lab person would come in and be able to take this data and information and say, okay, you got a fucking wolf in the hen house. You know what I mean? And anyway, so all right, so people may not. I mean, I'm saying there are. Listen. It bothers me that, and maybe it'll change. I don't know. I mean, I got a lot of complaints. I feel it's unfair that they kept the $3 billion. They don't have one fucking success. Maybe there's one. I don't know. Successful social equity licensee, right? Where what social equity licensee, which by definition means that they are economically challenged, at least. Could they get pre-qualified by giving a 20% discount on their license application? How the fuck are they going to get a building? Who's going to lend them money for their cannabis idea? Yeah. I mean, talk about empty promises. They should have a bank of cannabis.
Yeah.
There should be something to the qualification for social equity. What about moving to the front of the line? What about, like, I got 4 felonies, I should get first shot at it. And instead we're letting some fucking cops falsify testing and fucking kill it and take it away from all the other fucking. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little hypersensitive.
Oh, no. The only thing I would just bring back up is that this isn't a new problem, and I realize that it's bullshit and what they're doing isn't right, but if we reflect back on the last decade, I can recall many different times about lab quality, not just in Michigan, but across the country, coming into question, and things like inflated THC numbers being reported, inflated CBD numbers being reported. So this isn't new. It's unfortunately just the game people play so they can make a buck.
Jamie, what are your thoughts? Does this impact you the same way? I'll ask you, and then we can get to Jaime. I want to hear Jaime as a, not as emotionally attached, I guess. Jamie, what do you think? Am I making any sense? I know we're not. I know you're not into shit talking.
Well, no, you gave me some perspective in terms of the MRA's lack of doing something actually about Veritas. That's the culpability that you're saying they have.
They have that culpability. The other thing is this. I was going to say, here you go, Jim. This is for you. I knew I had to get the quote because this is the thing, and it's from something that you know and love.
Oh.
Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not.
Yep. I love that. It's the Lorax.
Dr. Seuss, the Lorax. Okay, now, I say that because if this shit show isn't going on, the cannabis growers are going to grow better cannabis, right? What is acceptable for good cannabis and passing and high THC is shit, and that is driving this fucking thing. Well, nobody wants that. But give it up for the caregiver. Give it up for the quality. You got to take extra steps to make it right. Force that to happen. Instead, we have lowered the bar. This isn't supply and demand. This isn't. It's like, this is the shit, take it or leave it, the state weed. That's the problem. It's so controlled and so overly regulated that that there is not an honest.
I don't think that'll be the feedback that you'll get from most consumers.
I'm not talking about them. I'm doing this because I care. And nothing's going to get better. It's not.
That's fine.
I'm just saying.
I mean, I care too, man. And I didn't want things to change either. And we knew when marijuana was legalized in Michigan that it was going to change things significantly. And
there was a chance. Look, I'll tell you, had more cities and townships opted in instead of being fucking, if they would have done some other incentive program where, I'll tell you what, we'll give you $100,000 now. Right? They could have done that now. You opt in now, we'll give you want to, fucking.
It would have
there's tons of things they could have done.
It would have just delayed the inevitable. I mean, so.
Do you think, obviously they gave a preference. I mean, look, they gave a preference to medical, which is a higher bar. But even so, when the time came, there still was not a lot of cities. And of the cities that were in play, the medical operators, which are a limited group of eligible people, had already had their not just footprint, but their poo pen and their play pen, and it was all laid down already. So, but there's no. I mean, listen, the economy itself, with true supply and demand, will end up that way. There'll be a process, right?
Well, and that's what we're seeing here.
But it's not. It's being exasperated, accelerated, and super controlled. And the end game is a shitty It's like this is.
But it's still the train's still headed down the track in the exact same direction it would have been. That's the point. Like reflect back on the late '90s and the internet bubble, and the fact that all these different little internet companies stood up, and all of a sudden everybody owned an internet service provider, right? And you gave it a few years, and all of a sudden, it all consolidated. And what we saw there was a very immature industry that began to mature. And now, 20 years later, we're sitting here, and I mean, how many internet service providers are truly available to us? And this is the same idea that you're going to have a maturing industry. There's going to be bigger players. There's going to be consolidation. Will there be the mom and pop element? Sure, there will be.
Sure there will.
Yeah, there will.
Well,
there is with other industries.
Okay. My point is this: that they call it like an industrial revolution. That may be strong because you still have a lot of like collusion and antitrust activity, right? So, but the drawing board of this entire program begins with like Walmart. Starts with Walmart. There is no, the Power Family grocery. That is it's not even an option really.
It's not true.
It's not.
It's not true. I buy my meat from a family grocer. I mean, it's just it's not gonna, this mom and pop element. You're not gonna get rich doing it.
It's limited. It's well,
but you could probably make a living at it, just like these folks that own these really small microbrews.
They were the only way until the phenomena of these larger entities.
But they're not now.
Okay, but there was a process by which we got there. It was based upon the birth of the store, passing it through generations, getting some investors, having multiple stores, maybe getting a franchise, getting that idea, getting around there. These are, and then it becomes that. But before we get to that, till we get to that franchise big boy, that, there's still a burger place, some other place can open up. The point is that there's a, competitive, capitalistic, laissez-faire economic kind of idea that lets that thing flow, so that at the end of the road you might have a Walmart, but you must also have a specialty market, or you got a farmer's market, or you have a craft brewery or whatnot. I'm saying to you right now, we're starting, the playing field is so disheveled right now with this article that we're talking about. The article of that, the reason why this is down is because the ability for even the small businesses to be competitive as a group, as a collective group, is far being exceeded by the super grows and the vertically integrated licensing processes.
Yeah.
And there's no, it's not an open market. That's what I'm saying.
It is,
you can't
absolutely.
Get in.
This is what an open market looks like. I mean, but it's not a good. You're right. It's not a good example because of the regulation and the regulatory burdens that
you can't go out. I mean, if you had an idea, you could go get a bank loan,
but even
on a building, fix it up, and go to work.
But even if the licensing scheme didn't exist, okay, let's say anybody could just enter the market.
Okay,
you would still end up in the exact same place.
I think you would see different qualities of cannabis that would drive things. right? If you had the big dispenser over here in a mom and pop place, like if there were micro businesses all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And you had some family that was doing it that was in town against one of these other big fucking places.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
It would be
opportunities to come up with that niche market. That would.
I agree. I think they should make that type of license.
Well, that didn't happen. It didn't happen, and because the implementation of this has been to destroy that, right? Because once they had their foot in the door,
for sure.
So that's my complaint as well.
Their MO's been to be against small businesses too, and really anything that's not them.
Let me say, do you think if we took all the caregivers you knew, ever ran the rallies and the events and the compassion clubs,
got them all
ran
together
into them up
for
at
just one night.
Jeremy's place up in Flint, whatever. Do you think that if they were all licensed to do shit and do their shit, and they found out some lab was fucking cheating some other motherfucker and inflated, that they would ever allow that shit to go on?
Absolutely. It happened. It fucking happened. And everybody knew it was happening. Everybody talked
What are you
about
talking?
it.
When?
People were sending samples to Lab A and Lab B, and they were aggregating their results and discussing it, and it was clear. And I'm not going to name names, but it was clear which labs were inflating their shit.
I don't know.
And nothing happened. People still kept using them.
The labs?
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm saying to you this, that would the word get out amongst the growers?
It did, and the growers still use that lab.
Not that lab. I'm saying if the growers found out that other growers were cheating like that, they would be called out.
I don't agree.
You think that, so? They're all going to go start testing at that lab just to get the shit fucking twisted around?
No, I don't. But I just don't think
the point is that I think this phenomena of what is state cannabis is this. It is bad cannabis that's not passing microbials, that's inflated THC. That is because of this rollout. I'm saying to you that...
I'm just saying it's no different than it's ever been. It's just, that's it. Like, it's this regulated safe... And it's to your point, right? Like, it's this regulated safe market. It's not any different other than these new hurdles people have to get over in order to sell weed.
Then if it's the same thing, why the fuck do these assholes get to make all the money?
Yeah, because whether or not it's the same thing that it's been, or it was predicted, or anything like that, their practices are still at issue, and that's what we're talking about.
Oh, I agree.
Science in order.
I knew a lot of caregivers. I knew a lot of caregivers that really gave a shit about patients.
I did too, but I knew very few that would actually name names, and God bless them for that, because there were plenty of times when they could. But as caregivers, we all had this no narking mentality, and it extended to that.
Within the community, though.
Yes, within the community. Everybody would figure it out. But people weren't naming names.
I think that what's being passed off would, today within the community would never be passed off. There'd be too many. There's too, like there's somebody would step forward on behalf of a patient, say that the patient's getting fucked. You know what I mean? There was, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I understand what you're saying. I
think that there were absolutely certain individuals that would do that. I also know that there were absolutely individuals in that community that would take advantage of
there was a thing when people were concerned about the testing of some of the cannabis oil because it had some fucking, leftover.
Naphtha? Are we talking about
the
leftover naphtha issue?
Right.
Yeah, but that legitimately, it was scary. Like we were told.
All right, so that would be an example. I'm saying the idea that people were selling this miracle cannabis Rick Simpson oil, right? Mm-hmm. And all illicit, by the way, but in a way that was actually more harmful because it had a chemical that could theoretically cause cancer or whatnot. And when that happened, there's people that were calling people out. They're making those representations, right?
When they weren't purging it properly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's fair.
And I'm just saying there was. Listen, I know we're talking about medical. There was concerns for. I think a lot of caregivers really did care about what the final product was that they were getting. Now, it may not have passed this testing.
So
And
that
now-
really is an issue, whether or not it's 27% or 20% isn't a real life.
Right, they may not have cared about that. I think they would have been, and look, some may have been testing it for the mold. They may not have, but I think if they had spider mites, they would have fucking killed it.
Some of them.
Or used some terrible chemicals to get rid of it, which made it worse.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that, we would interact with and had ongoing relationships with were like that. But I engaged plenty of them that wouldn't think twice about.
Well, they were at a certain point where they had to make a decision between this upcoming harvest and the money they're planning on getting from it.
Yep.
Or tearing it down and waiting another 4 months before having another, or however long before having another shot at.
And I mean, I get it.
No, I'm not saying that they should have done that. I'm just saying that's how they got there.
Yeah.
All right, the stuff we're talking about is very minutia, right? We're all also, speculating on people. You may be thinking of some caregivers as we're talking. I may be thinking of some people. You know what I mean? The integrity, no integrity, good people, bad people. I don't know. So it's not really.
I know plenty of people on both sides.
All right, fine. Okay, so you understand my point, though. Legal cannabis is this. Could it have been better? Could it have been something else? Could there have been more caregivers that were in the market? It's more of a rarity or an anomaly than it is the common. And I look around and see who's dominating the place. Yeah, it was going to go corporate. Yeah, there was going to be buyouts and monopolies and things like that. But that might be okay if the integrity of the program wasn't knowingly false. Jaime, this shit that we're talking about, first, if it's making any sense, let me know. And second, am I being hypersensitive or is my outrage? And you're gonna have to piss. You don't have to answer, but if you are, you're gonna piss one of the three of us off.
No, I had no idea.
No,
it's like a foreign language to me.
Well, let me ask you: if hypothetically, if you were a consumer of cannabis, and you walked into a store, and you have certain expectations. You may expect to pay a little bit more than,
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. If I was younger, I would probably care about all that stuff if it was like something trendy or something. But usually, if it works for me, I wouldn't be a complainer. If it worked and got me stoned, I would, I'd be happy.
All right, but then if you knew that it was not actually passing testing for microbials, would that? I mean, I'm not.
Like if I found out there was something that a false advertisement of some sort when I bought my product, I would actually probably, and it didn't do anything to me, it didn't kill me, I didn't die. I'd probably return to the store, keep my product at home, just have my receipt, and told them, you sold me some recalled stuff, and hopefully get another free bag.
Hell yeah!
I mean, that's just
what I would do too.
Most people would use that system and use that game all day.
Understood, but you would not knowingly go back and buy from them again, would you?
No, I would totally go back and just pick a different one. Okay. And then if it did the same thing,
and then he'd buy more shit.
I already smoked it. I didn't realize it was that one.
Right.
I need another one.
I mean, I think we're also presuming that when they actually smoke inflated THC that hasn't passed the testing, that it in fact has an impact on you. Yeah. It may not. Imagine that you're buying the THC and you're like, shit, I just smoked the whole bag and I don't even feel buzz.
Yeah.
What if that's happening, Jimmy? What if they're selling you like shit, not just mold? It says it's supposed to be something they got to,
Then you're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, if it's Michigan make you mad, you're going to go back and take it back. People, that's what they called crappy weed in my younger days. It was Michigan make you mad. You're definitely going to want your refund.
Well, the point is, do you think that what's on the market is that great? It's less expensive.
I mean, it depends. It's just like it is in the caregiver market. There's good product in the retail market, and there's subpar product in the retail market.
Maybe I'm just a dreamer, but I'd like to think that we should be shooting for something other than Ernest and Julio as the baseline.
I think we are. I mean, I've seen really superb flower in stores.
Yeah, the rebound from the saturation that was taking place in Oregon was ultimately high quality cannabis. People still willing to pay more.
All right, but I'm saying to you that I don't know that we've ever gotten high quality cannabis if 70% of the flower is tested by a lab That is an anomaly in science.
But how do you define high quality cannabis?
Well, they passed microbial stuff that probably shouldn't have been passed, and they call the THC number higher for whatever that means for somebody. But the cannabis could still be good.
It could be shit too.
It could be, for sure.
I don't know.
I mean, it could be good by all the other standards, how somebody would normally approach it in terms of its appearance, its essence, how it breaks up with in terms of humidity, how it burns, how it tastes, the effect, all that kind of stuff. All that's appreciated, regardless if Viridis tested it or not.
Well, I got to tell you, my takeaway from you two is that you don't mind being lied to, screwed over, because it's cannabis.
It's not the
We've
point.
been cheated, lied to, fucked over. Fuck me over some more. You want to take a shit on my face? Come on, right over here.
When it was illegal and not legal, nobody cared about that at all.
It's just that the normal, and I think that's.
I'm allowed to be upset.
You can be. It's just that
I think it's something to protest.
I don't think there's any excuse for those guys, having certain methodology that gives different numbers than what the usual standards are for approaching, those tests. I agree with you 100%, but I still think that it just doesn't mean it's bad just because,
Most people just don't.
First of all, you people are condoning illegal activity just because it's cannabis.
You sound like
Jim.
You sound like a cop.
Jim, if you were...
An opinion is if somebody were satisfied with the bud that they bought and then found out that
it's because it's only weed. It's not like somebody's buying Peruvian.
It's a fucking billion-dollar industry. People are fucking robbing the fucking public.
Do it. They shouldn't be testing like that.
If the world,
people are not going to get excited about it and run back.
What if fucking Amazon starts shipping out shit that's not really in the boxes? Here's your Stretch Armstrong, and they send you the fucking copy.
They'll stop because they know those people aren't going to come back. And it's the same thing. The market will fix this, but the problem,
it's not an open market.
It's open enough. It's open to the point where people can have a legal path, the medical path, and a totally illicit path. And it is. The people are not having any trouble in the state of Michigan getting marijuana.
It shouldn't be like that. If you're going to try to get to the point where we're reducing the price, you have to do it in a way that makes it free capitalism, laissez-faire. That's not what's taking place. It shouldn't be you got the legal market and the illegal market. There should be one market.
I know a lot of people that like it that way.
Illegal and illegal?
Yeah.
You know what? I wouldn't have a problem if there was one big legal fucking market and let that thing ride it out.
I agree.
And let the best fucking woman win.
I'm just saying that.
What do you mean you agree?
That's
what I'm saying.
I would rather just have one open market, but a lot of people like it the way it is.
Well, prohibition doesn't work.
No, I agree. That's probably a good line to go out on.
That's right. And I hate to say, I like the idea that marijuana won the war on drugs, but these are a bunch of fucking losers. I can't, I hate the idea that they get the fucking torch.
I know. I'm just,
you know what I mean?
I'm just the eternal optimist. And you know what I really love about legalization is that we've watched our friends stop going to jail en masse for this shit. So these problems, I'll talk about. And
what about our friends who now can't get a job?
We got to help them.
How?
We got to help them. We got to keep going.
Can't make a living.
Got to keep going. That's
buildings getting foreclosed on.
That's why it's important. We got to legalize it federally. We do that. A lot of these other.
That ain't going to help. I say let the whole market open. Let all these places, these caregivers get a license. Let them. They don't have to test it because testing doesn't fucking matter.
Overgrow the world, man. Overgrow the planet.
Well, do it in a way that I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm saying you keep saying let the market correct the problem. I'm only advocating for a free market. I don't think we have evolved into that.
Open the market.
That's better because as Jim has said, as if you acknowledge, the big money are going to keep on gobbling up, the smaller entities, and that's going to keep on going on down the line, like many other industries over time. But we don't have to hand it over to them.
It's not like there isn't the will to compete. There's a lot of people, but they don't have the resources or even access to get in. That's what I'm saying. That's not a free market. You know what I mean? Like if somehow in the next 2 months, 3 months, you're able to throw out there all throughout the state some superstar caregiver mom pop that's got a micro brew up in a city where there's other.
All right.
Do what
they do in Oklahoma, where they let anybody.
All right, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
You get a small license, and you meet the standards, and you can put your stuff in the market.
All right, but I'm saying if that was the case, at least we'd have some competition, right? We'd have some other quality, or maybe it doesn't live up. Maybe they can't do it. Maybe they can't do it. Maybe it doesn't.
Give more people more opportunity for longer before the gobbling up of the big.
This is what I'm saying. The gobbling's ended.
Gobble gobble. No, it has not ended.
Oh no,
not even close.
Really?
It's just
how about this?
Started, man.
The marijuana prices plummet in Michigan. Customers are happy. It's farmers worried.
Yep.
It may be. It may be. I think there's going to be less cannabis. The only way there's going to be less cannabis. The only way there's going to be less cannabis and the market's going to improve for the business owners and quality is going to get better is if they correct the testing problem and real, true plant representations are represented on and there's no fucking testing, whatever. I'm just saying that's the thing. All right, you want to wrap it up?
We got to wrap it up.
I think in closing, I may just be more hypersensitive to the lab issue.
I mean, I think
in my outrage,
I think there might be a little
but it's also that they're getting
sucks, man.
Well,
fuck them.
I mean, to put a grower in the position like, listen, I'm gonna keep coming to you, even though I know you're fucking lying, is bad. I mean, I don't know. It's I don't know how you can have a fair open market when the market is driven by this falsity. That's what it is. It's a falsity. All right, enough. We can wrap it up. Any final comments? I know that
and they were driven by such things when they were running the police labs years ago too.
Yeah. All right. That I think we hit all the topics except the Detroit City Council, and that can actually be part of my random rant of the week. Right.
Good. There's a little social equity hook in there too.
The retail stuff could still be challenged. That could still see a process in the courts for a while, but it's severable, and the rest of it would move forward. All the other licenses.
Yeah. When does it go into effect? I forgot the date.
I'm not sure.
Let me see. All right, that's good. We don't have to talk about it. All right, so, Jaime, did you have fun?
Yeah, it was a good one. Even though, like I said, I didn't understand a lot of it, but it was still fun.
Sorry. there was some minutia. I know. I didn't mean to.
A lot of people in this bubble speak with a lot of reference that everybody between us knows, and it becomes,
Well, that's why I wanted to see his take on it,
Yeah. Right. We should explain things a little bit more. I do that all the time. I'm not saying, judging you for it. I do it all the time.
You do all the time. You explain to people, or you don't explain?
I just speak assuming as if people understand,
right,
like some of the background on some of the issues and stuff like that when they haven't necessarily experienced it yet,
sure,
or learned about it yet.
All right, good. All right. So, any final thoughts, Jamie? Where are you going to be appearing next?
Appearing nowhere, as far as I know. But I will say that the Kalkushka Lounge up north is set to go.
All right.
Fully approved, licensed. I don't know exactly when the first activity will be, but it's ready to go.
Will you be appearing there?
I'll be going there at some point, yeah.
Okay.
That's all true.
Jaime, any final thoughts? Of course, anyone that wants some more Jaime, they can find him at Meant to Vent podcast.
Yep, like I said, I appreciate you guys having me. It was awesome.
Good to have you. Jim, any final commentary?
I got nothing.
Where's Amanda, by the way? Did she just bail on us?
She had a he's indisposed.
And Steve disappeared too. He escaped.
Yeah,
All right.
but he gave us forewarning that was going to happen.
All right.
So
All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. We're going to call it here. Planet Green Trees, episode 557. We'll see you next week.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney. And here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective. Take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Good to see you, Mr. Mike. How's it going? We're here live on your Planet Green Trees, streaming live on the channel right now. We thought we'd get a couple words and see how you're doing.
Doing pretty good. I was a little panicked getting here because the traffic was terrible. A lot of jams, the football game going on as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got here and I saw that it hadn't started yet, and I thought they were waiting for me.
Of course.
But it turns out they just have a power outage.
No green carpet, power outage.
And, I was disappointed. I thought that Jaime had made it so that he was waiting for me, actually. But turns out I was wrong. But it looks like a great event. And
real good turnout.
Of freedom out there. See the freedom out there?
Look at that.
Bunch of freedom. Little cannajam sign over there, October 8th. Cannajam.
Coming this fall. Everybody save that date.
Headliners over there. Headliner over there. Lathe.
All these beautiful humans here.
Someone's going to have to help me who it is, but the last World Series the Tigers went to?
84?
That's me. I'm like an 84 guy.
Okay.
They went later.
Oh, yes. 06 maybe, 04 or 06.
Right. And their leading, their top pitcher's name was...
Man.
So it was 104 miles per hour, I guess. He's over there.
Really?
He's over there. The hat. What's his name?
Zumaya?
Yes. Zumaya.
Okay. Awesome.
104 mile per hour. You know what he's doing now? He's coaching Little League. That's what we have in common. I'm a Little League coach, too.
All right.
I hope he talks about how to intermingle cannabis into Little League coaching. That'd be interesting, wouldn't
it? Bringing in the CBD for health purposes, obviously.
I'm thinking more like to doctor the ball a little bit. You know, get a little
resin. Little resin in there.
Spin rate. It's all about spin rate.
It's all about that. You got to get the ratio. You want the drop on the curve or the change up. What about this guy Mike here?
Michael Tui's got one of the most famous cases in the history of the state of Michigan.
Komorn had the honor to be able to represent for us.
I was honored. And it went like judges are control freaks, generally speaking. They like to control people. They put them on probation. They tell them you can't use your medical marijuana card.
Right.
The Michael Tui case said that's bullshit.
Okay.
And when you have your card, the court cannot hurt you if you use medical marijuana while you're on probation. So the response when the judge says you're ordered not to use medical marijuana while you're on probation, you give them the finger and hold your card up.
That's right.
And that's what the case represents. Despite that, we're still fighting legislation to try to undo it. It's that bad. There's actually legislation that's been introduced as like the Michael Toohey legislation to undo that shit.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know how it got there?
Clement was just telling me that he had a table full of prosecutors, like specifically saying, my case and Michael Toohey, the court case, and that we really pissed off a lot of people with that one, Michael.
So much so that they had to come out of pocket. They didn't have money to pay for the budget of their courthouse, but they came out of pocket to get their lobbyists. Because every court needs a lobbyist, right? Yeah. They're not just there to interpret the law. They want to make law, go to the legislature, and introduce bills that are intended to fuck people.
That's right.
It's pretty disturbing, but that's the state we're in. What can you do?
It's amazing, humans. That guy's out here making big moves, fighting for everybody out there.
Michael Komorn changed my life.
That's what he says. Believe that. Changing lives out here, fighting for every human.
I own the Center for Compassion and Great Lakes Hemp Supplements in Traverse City. We started back in June of 2009. So I came home and I was on parole in 2008 when we passed this law. So getting this accomplishment a pass for those that are on bond and on probation and on parole has been a goal that I've been working on since I came home from prison in 2008.
That's amazing.
So to get this case to finally go through and set precedents and set so much precedents that they had to respond with legislative change to try to overrule what was a unanimous decision in our Court of Appeals. They need to leave it alone. They need to back off. So you need to call your representatives and tell them to vote no on House Bill 5512. It's really important that we don't let them reverse the change that we fought so hard for all these years.
That's right, man, because the wrong people are in charge on that end. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice to meet you, man.
Future state rep.
Charged with a crime, you need a real attorney, and here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective: take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
When you're charged with a crime, you need a real attorney, and here's just a few reasons why. The police, the courts, the labs, the drug tests, probation, the judges, the jails, the prisons, and the entire system is just one big machine. They have one objective: take your freedom, take your possessions, take your money, take your children, control your life, and destroy your future. You only get one chance to hire the right attorney. One that will stay in your corner. One that will fight for your rights. One that will fight for your freedom. Choose an attorney that's experienced in fighting the justice machine. Attorney Michael Komorn. Knockout victories one case at a time. Komorn Law. Google it. komornlaw.com.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. Michigan Medical Marijuana.
From G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.